The first light of morning crept slowly over the rooftops of Tonda, Manila, painting the rusted tin sheets with soft shades of gold. The narrow alleyways were already alive with sound, vendors calling out their prices, tricycles coughing to life, and radios humming faint love songs from open windows. In the middle of this daily rush stood Miguel Santos, a thin young man with tired eyes and a voice no one around him truly knew yet. His sandals were worn at the soles, his shirt faded from countless washes, but he stood with quiet determination near the jeepney stop, holding an old, dented microphone that barely worked. Miguel had been awake since before sunrise. He helped his mother prepare rice and fried bananas to sell by the roadside, then carried the small wooden table outside. They worked mostly in silence, speaking only when necessary. Life had taught them both to conserve words as carefully as they conserved money. By mid-morning, his mother waved him off with a tired smile, knowing where he was going. Every day, after helping at home, Miguel went to sing. It was the only thing that made him feel like he was more than just another poor boy trying to survive. As the traffic thickened, Miguel took a deep breath and began to sing. At first, his voice was low and gentle, barely noticeable against the noise of the city. Passers-by rushed past him, office workers, students, street vendors, most too busy to stop. A few glanced at him briefly, then turned away. Coins were rare. Some days, he earned almost nothing. Still, he kept singing, his voice steady despite the ache in his stomach and the doubts in his heart. Rain clouds gathered suddenly, as they often did in Manila. A light drizzle began to fall, dotting the dusty road with dark spots. People hurried for cover under shop awnings and umbrellas. Miguel stayed where he was. The rain soaked his hair and darkened his shirt, but he did not stop. In that moment, he closed his eyes and let his voice drop deeper, fuller, stronger than before. The sound that came from him did not match his thin frame. It was rich, powerful, and haunting, carrying a weight that made a few people slow their steps. A small girl tugged at her father's hand and pointed. An old man selling cigarettes paused and listened. Even the driver of a passing jeepney turned down his radio for a moment. Miguel's voice seemed to vibrate in the air, cutting through the rain and noise like something alive. He was not singing for money now. He was singing for the dreams he had never dared to speak out loud. He was singing about hunger, about hope, about believing in a tomorrow that felt impossibly far away. Still, when the song ended, the moment passed quickly. Life rushed back in. The rain softened, the traffic grew loud again, and most people moved on. A few coins lay near his feet, barely enough for a simple meal. Miguel bent down slowly and picked them up, his fingers cold, his heart heavy but not broken. He looked down the long road stretching ahead of him and wondered, as he did every day, if anyone out there would ever truly hear him. As evening approached, the sky burned orange and violet over the crowded rooftops. Miguel sang again, his voice deeper now with both exhaustion and emotion. Somewhere beyond the chaos of Tonda, beyond the struggle and the noise, the world felt huge and unreachable. Yet inside him, something refused to give up. He did not know how, and he did not know when, but with every note he sang into the thick Manila air, Miguel was unknowingly taking the first step toward a stage he had only ever imagined in his quietest dreams. The waiting hall outside the audition room was colder than Miguel expected. The air conditioning hummed softly above, sending a chill through his thin shirt as he sat on a plastic chair with hundreds of other hopeful faces. Some warmed up their voices, some whispered prayers, some stared at the floor in silence. Miguel held his contestant number tightly between shaking fingers. His heart beat so loudly in his ears that he wondered if others could hear it. This place felt like another world, far from the rain-soaked streets of Tonda, far from the jeepney stop where his voice had learned to survive against noise and indifference. When his number was called, his legs felt weak as he stood. Each step toward the stage door felt heavier than the last. A staff member guided him forward with a gentle nod, and suddenly the bright lights hit his eyes. The massive stage opened before him like a dream he was not sure he deserved to touch. The audience was a dark blur beyond the lights, but the judges' table was clear. There they were, famous faces he had only seen on small cracked screens at roadside shops. In the center sat Simon Cowell, arms folded, eyes sharp and unreadable. "What's your name?" Simon asked calmly. "Miguel Santos, sir," Miguel replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where are you from, Miguel?" another judge asked with a smile. "Manila, Philippines," he said, swallowing hard. A few polite nods came from the judges. They had seen thousands like him, nervous, hopeful, uncertain. Simon leaned back slightly, his expression neutral. "And what will you be singing for us today?" Miguel took one final deep breath. "An original song, sir. About my life." The room fell quiet. For a second, fear threatened to freeze his voice. He thought of his mother at the food stall, of the rain on his shoulders, of the coins on the ground by his feet. Then he remembered why he had come. He closed his eyes and sang. The first note dropped lower than the judges expected. A deep vibration rolled out of his chest, steady and powerful. Simon's posture shifted instantly. His eyebrows lifted just slightly. The second note fell even lower, rich and impossibly full. A quiet ripple moved through the audience. Some leaned forward. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Miguel's voice was not just deep, it was thunder wrapped in emotion. Each word carried pain, longing, and strength far beyond his years. The lyrics spoke of hunger, of watching dreams from a distance, of singing into the dark without knowing if anyone would ever truly listen. His voice filled the hall, echoing against the walls, sinking into every silent space. Simon slowly leaned toward the table, his eyes locked on Miguel. The casual skepticism on his face had vanished, replaced by pure focus. One of the judges whispered softly, "Oh my God." Another shook their head in disbelief as the sound grew deeper, heavier, and yet perfectly controlled. Miguel stood still at the center of the stage, trembling on the inside but unshakable in his voice. He did not see the tears in the audience or the stunned faces of the judges. He only saw the road he had walked for so long and poured every step of it into the song. When he reached the final note, it rumbled through the hall like distant thunder and then faded into absolute silence. For one long heartbeat, no one moved. Then Simon exhaled slowly, his eyes wide. The silence broke into shock, gasps, and rising whispers across the room. Miguel opened his eyes, unsure of what he had done, only knowing that his voice, his only true possession, had finally been heard by the world. The applause started slowly, like the first drops of rain before a storm, then grew into a roaring wave that filled the entire theater. Miguel stood frozen on the AGT stage, his chest heaving from the effort of holding every note, his eyes wide as the reality of the moment began to sink in. Confetti cannons erupted above him, sending golden ribbons fluttering through the air. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, and whistling, their energy almost tangible. Miguel blinked through the glittering haze, unable to stop the tears from welling in his eyes. Simon Cowell was on his feet, hands clapping slowly at first, then with increasing excitement. His face, usually a mask of skepticism, was now alive with amazement and genuine emotion. He leaned toward the microphone and spoke with a rare, unguarded warmth. "I have heard thousands of voices in my career," he said, his tone deliberate, carrying weight across the stage, "but I have never heard one like yours. That depth, that power, it's unbelievable. You have something no one else has. It's extraordinary." The other judges nodded, some standing, some wiping tears from their eyes. One pressed the golden buzzer with a dramatic flourish, sending Miguel into a whirlwind of glitter and light. For the first time in his life, the boy from the streets of Tonda felt that every struggle, every lonely hour spent singing in the rain, had led to this one, perfect moment. As the confetti settled, Miguel's thoughts raced. He thought of his mother, working tirelessly at their small food stall, of the long walks to the jeepney stop, of coins dropped on the ground by strangers who barely noticed him. Every hardship, every quiet tear, every whispered hope had carried him here. His voice, his dream, had finally broken through the barriers of poverty and doubt. The crowd continued to cheer, Simon's praise ringing in his ears. Miguel finally allowed himself a small, shaky smile, feeling a warmth spread through him. He was no longer just a boy singing in the streets, he was a symbol of hope, proof that talent and heart could shine brighter than any circumstance. That night, on the biggest stage in the world, Miguel's voice did not just echo, it soared, carrying with it the dreams of millions who had never dared to hope. For Miguel, the streets of Manila felt a little closer to the world, and the world felt a little closer to him.